Hello everybody and welcome to episode 2 of the Dominion card discussion. And today we are going to talk about the Intrigue cards. And just like last time, we're going to kind of go over all of the rejected cards, talk about why they were rejected, and that sort of deal. We're going to start with these again. So first we have Coppersmith, which we are looking at a card that costs 4. Copper produces an extra $1 this turn. It's a somewhat mediocre card. I feel like it didn't really deserve to be removed. It really helps you hit 6. In fact, like if you think about hand compositions, right, after your opening shuffles, like you say open double silver, well, to hit 6, you need to hit 4 copper and a silver, or you need to hit 2 silver and 2 copper. That's very difficult to do. Whereas Coppersmith just needs to find 3 copper. So that seems much more likely than finding 2 silvers or finding 4 coppers with a silver. So if you really want to hit 6, Coppersmith is a great way to do that. I don't have specific numbers, but I feel like it's I feel like it's at least more likely Coppersmith hits 6 than the aforementioned silver ideas. So they talk a little. I didn't really read these on the last one, so I'm not really reading these still. I'm kind of just going by how I approach things, not how other people approach it. So I feel like Coppersmith maybe would have benefited with just having a plus buy on it, but otherwise, like, I still think it's a fun card. I don't think it's all that bad, actually. Like, I think, if I'm gonna be honest, I think this card was I think this card only has gotten better as the meta's more shifted to like power stuff, because there's more of these like broken things at 6, like altar and artisan, and it's sometimes maybe innovation, crop rotation. There's a lot more stuff out there that's pretty insane that costs 6, that if you just hit it really fast, you just win. Also, let's not talk about the fact that if you have Coppersmith and 4 copper in play, you just hit 8, and then that's Inheritance, that's Citadel. And like, oh man, do you think Coppersmith Citadel is good? Like, if you like get a freak turn 3 Coppersmith Citadel, and then you just buy a bunch of Coppersmiths, and then all you have to do is play Coppersmith with 3 coppers in hand every turn, and then you hit 9, and then that's just Province, and then otherwise you hit like 6 with just 2 coppers and a Coppersmith in play. That's, oh man, like, it's probably not good, actually. Like, thinking about it, like, the lining that up seems really hard, but if you do line it up really fast, it seems annoyingly good, like, really fast at scoring. Like, I wish I could test that. It's probably not that good, but, like, I wish I could test it. I miss Coppersmith. I actually do, like, unironically miss Coppersmith. Like, only when I think about, like, I don't think about Coppersmith, it's just whenever I see it, I'm like, yeah, I kind of miss Coppersmith. Also, I tried recording this video a couple days ago, and I clicked on Harem as one of the rejected cards, and I was talking about it for like 5 minutes before I realized, oh wait, this card isn't rejected. That was so funny. I was laughing so hard. I had to stop the video. I just went to bed. I'm like, I can't do this. So we got Great Hall next. Great Hall's a pretty mediocre card. It's an action victory. It costs 3. It's just a cantrip with an estate, pretty much just combined. A pretty hilarious thing you could do is Inheritance, Great Hall. Oh, you can't really do that, can you? Because I think it's a yeah, I don't care about looking up the about looking up the rules. I don't know if it works or not. Yeah, it says here it was removed for not being interesting enough. It's like, yeah, I have nothing to really say about the card. Like, it's fine. Like, if you ever have $3 and you don't want to buy a silver and You don't really want to buy anything else. Yeah, you'll buy a Great Hall, because, hey, it's a point, and it doesn't hurt your deck, but otherwise you really don't care. It was a pretty awful card. It's not really worth talking about. Its most interesting properties are when you have things like King's Court being your only village, or, like, Throne Room, and then, hey, you'll throne a Great Hall. Like, okay. Then there's, like, Ironworks stuff with Great Hall. You can use an Ironworks to gain a Great Hall. Okay. Like, whatever. It's, like, not that interesting. Saboteur. Each other player reveals cards from the top of his deck until revealing one costing $3 or more. He trashes that card and may gain a card costing at most $2 less than it. You don't even have to gain a card. He discards the other revealed cards. So, like, I feel like this card would be a lot better if you were forced to gain a card. Like, it would be destructive then, right? Because if you were forced to gain a copper after trashing a silver, like, ugh, that's disgusting. That's really disgusting then. If you're forced to gain a card, ugh. But it just says may, so it's like, okay, you trashed my silver, I don't care. Like, night attacks do that all the time, right? Like, okay, cool. You hit my silver, I don't really want a copper or this 2 cost, so I'm just not going to gain anything. And you don't get any bonus when you play a Saboteur at all. Even with Jester, you get 2 coins out of it, and that's a really weak card. You play Saboteur, like, you play Knights and you usually get a bonus out of it, right? Like, that's why James Josephine is the worst one, because you don't get any bonus out of playing it. It's just worth 2 VP. That's what, it's so awful. And then the cards that have, like, the best bonuses on them tend to be the better Knights, right? So Saboteur does nothing for you, it just attacks. So Saboteur, like, you're thinking, alright, best case Saboteur is I play Saboteur as many times as possible, which makes you think, alright, King's Court. And yeah, King's Court Saboteur is destructive and degenerate, which is, like, probably another reason this card got removed, is because, like, in all the instances where it's really good, it's really, really annoying to deal with, and no one wants to play with it. And otherwise, it's quite weak, and no one wants to play with it. Like, both don't want to play with it, but for different reasons. Yeah, it's rather an awful card, and then it can become a degenerate card if you have stuff like King's Court. So, yeah, like, it is still part of the rich variety of Dominion. It is enjoyed by a certain kind of play. What? Alright, Scout. Scout is the meme card of Dominion. Everyone... Oh, wow. And I ought to just read these descriptions instead of just talking about the card. It's going to cover everything I'm already going to say. Scout, yeah, is the meme card of Dominion. Everyone made memes about how awful Scout was, because it was really, really awful. So, like, every strategy... Like, for example, there was a cage match between, I believe, Philip and McSeenock. They wanted to play a Blitz variety of Dominion. This was back during the Making Fun days, and Philip wrote like a script for like a better Dominion, kind of. It made Making Fun run better and all these like little changes, and he included this Blitz version. And they played this Blitz version where if you bought Scout, you would get more time during your turns, but Scout's an awful card, so like you'd have to balance it out. Like, it was like this big joke. It was really funny. It's surprisingly interesting. It's like you'd buy Scouts just for time, and then you could time out your opponent, but Scouts are like super awful. It was really interesting. It's out there on YouTube somewhere. I'm sure you could find it. But Scout, yeah, it doesn't. It's just a cantrip. It does nothing for you. I apologize. I'm still sick. I'm not as sick anymore. So you reveal the top 4 cards of your deck, put the revealed victory cards into your hand, and put the other cards on top of your deck in any order. I would say Scout combos with more cards now, which is maybe a crazy thing to say. I think Scout suffered from a lot from like, say, the base and Intrigue sets being much worse than they were. Like, I think Scout would be a better card now, but not by much, and it's, like, it's still very, very often horrible. Like, let me give you an example. So, everyone says, you know, like it says here, whoops. Everyone says here, yeah, Scout is okay, picking up cards like Great Hall, Harem, and Nobles. Yeah, it doesn't really work, though. I think the single best thing about Scout that I can think of is deck inspection. So, like, you know how people will play, like, cartographers to help them, like, chain their vassals and heralds? Like, that would be, like, Scout's best case, is, like, a poor man's cartographer. Like, you wouldn't play it to draw your green, and if it drew green, that would just be a nice bonus. You would use the Scout, to, you know, just play your vassals. I think a Prince Scout would actually be quite good. Like, it would be better than just a cantrip, in my opinion. Of course, Prince Cartographer would be best of all, but, like, you know, beggars can't be choosers. Like, yeah, and, like, even with all this argument, like, you have to draw Scout at the start of your turn, and then you have to draw it with, like, a bunch of vassals, and then your Scout has to reveal a bunch of cards that you can organize in a particular order that otherwise wouldn't have worked. So, like, Scout's not good. Like, it deserved to be removed. Let's not pretend it was good. Secret Chamber is arguably worse, though, although it has a very nice combo with Tactician. And by nice combo, I mean it still needs draw in order to be nice. So, let's first talk about the card itself, and then we'll talk about the logistics of why it was removed. I think it had more to do with the reaction than the actual weakness of the card, but I don't think the weakness of the card helped. So Secret Chamber costs 2, discard any number of cards, plus 1 card, coin per card discarded, which is by itself a very weak card, but, like, you see that in Storeroom, right, from Dark Ages. It provides a plus buy. And it cycles you cards and stuff, so it's a much more interesting card than this card already. When another player plays an attack card, you may reveal this from your hand. If you do, plus 2 cards, then put 2 cards from your hand on top of your deck. So, with this card, you can reveal it over and over and over and over and over again when another player plays an attack card. Seriously. You can, in theory, like, chain this card forever. You had no way of setting it aside. So, like, oh, I played this Secret Chamber, but I drew another Secret Chamber, I promise you. Or I had another one in hand. Like, you have no way of knowing that. So someone could troll and just keep revealing Secret Chamber forever. And that was, like, you couldn't do that in the client. The client wouldn't let you, but in, like, real-life Dominion, and just, like, in theory, like, this was, like, horribly implemented, and Donald kind of was always regretted this, and so, well, first chance he took it out of the game. He wanted to make a cleaner version of Dominion. So, like, yeah, I think this is the main reason it actually got taken out, but, I mean, the card by itself is horrible. It's a very bad card, so. So Secret Chamber guarantees you 4 money when you play it with nothing else, right? So you have your Secret Chamber and your 4 coppers, and you toss those 4 coppers to hit 4. Oh boy, you would have hit 4 anyway. You can also play it with a hand of 3 estates and a copper. Hey, you got $4, and you would have had $1 otherwise. So, like, how important is hitting 4? Really? How important is it? Well, alright. Hey, Gardens, right? Gardens is great, because you want to hit 4. Well, A, Gardens isn't very good, and B, you want to gain the Gardens. So, like, with Workshop Gardens, Secret Chamber doesn't really work. So, like, So now you're scrambling to think, alright, what's really important about Dominion that I, like, magically hit 4? And what makes that really good? And the thing I'm thinking of right now is Canal. Alright, stick with me. So you hit 7, you buy your Canal, then you can go for Duchy Duke. And then hitting 4 is great. But, like, Secret Chamber is like... Secret Chamber doesn't help you hit 7. It really doesn't. A. B. Buying Secret Chambers after you hit Canal is kind of, like, silly. Because, well, it's pretty easy to hit 4 anyway. And, yeah. Like, that's, like, the case. That's the case. These are kind of, like, the crazy cases you have to make to justify guaranteeing hitting a 4. And then Secret Chamber is also terminal. Like, what? It's a terminal card. Like, you could slap +1 action on this card and it would be just as bad. It would not be much... I mean, alright, that's not true. Actually, Secret Chamber would have uses then. Secret Chamber can work with... what's the card called? It's the card from Nocturne. Cursed Village, I think it's... Yeah, Cursed Village. It works with Cursed Village. So you could play your Cursed Village, toss 5 cards, play another Cursed Village, that's 5 money. Hey, Secret Chamber found a use. Like, it's just a worse Storeroom Cursed Village combo. Yeah, but, like, Storeroom is good in cases where Secret Chamber isn't. Like, this card's just so rotten awful. The reaction hardly ever matters. You can use the reaction to, guarantee, like, a knight attack doesn't hit, or, oh, I don't want the silver anymore, this knight can kill it, or something, like, you know, things like that. It's like, eh. Or, hey, a minion attack. These are the 2 cards I want. Yeah. It's pretty hard to, like, the cases where this card is good is, like, Tactician, too. Tactician's 1. And even then it needs card draw, right? Because you draw 10 cards, right? Well, you play Secret Chamber, now you have 9 cards. One of those cards has to be Tactician, so that's 8 cards. And you need a card to discard with Tactician, so that's 7 cards. So you can only toss 7 cards with Secret Chamber. Right? 10, 9, 8, 7. Yes. You can only toss 7 cards with Secret Chamber. You still have to have 3 cards left over. One of them being Secret Chamber. So you really have to toss from a 9-card hand when you play your Secret Chamber, and then you can only toss 7 cards out of those 9 because you need the Tactician and then you need the card to discard. Yeah, okay. Sorry, that took me a long time to think about. But yeah, like, you don't even hit Province just by itself. You need, like, a lab or, like, a village and a smithy to hit Province consistently. And if you're just hitting Province with your double Tactician deck using Secret Chamber, you know, maybe that's fast. But I also feel like you can do a lot better than that. And that's, like... And even that needs support. Like, ugh. Like, I don't know. Like, Secret Chamber isn't all that good. It really deserved to be removed. And finally, we have Tribute, which is, like, a pretty RNG card. So, the player to your left reveals, then discards the top 2 cards of his deck for each differently named card revealed. If it's an action card, you get 2+ actions. If it's a treasure card, you get 2 coins. And if it's a victory card, you get 2 cards. So, if you played a Tribute and you flipped 2 villages, I think you only get 2 actions because it says differently named card. So, like, you have to flip 2 different cards. Does it talk about this? One of the cards removed for no particular reason. What? That's it, but reason. No particular reason, but reason. Okay. Tribute is a pretty rare choice. Yeah, it's a very weak card. Yes. Yes. pretty easy to get hosed, but playing one hoping for additional actions. Oh yeah, the fucking RNG element. Alright, so it doesn't mention it, but I'm pretty sure that's a real thing, right? You get bonuses for the types of card revealed, only counting the different cards. If your opponent reveals 2 identical treasures or victory cards. Yep, okay. So it looks like they're mentioning that. Okay. So that is indeed a thing. So if you reveal 2 coppers, you only get 2 coins out of it. You don't even get 4 coins out of it. Ha! Sucks to suck. So it's a really RNG card. So it can go from like really stupid to like stupid strong, right? Like if someone's going for nobles, like if you know nobles are just going to be a dominant part of the game, you'll pick up a tribute, right? Because if you flip a nobles, it's a lost city just for revealing the nobles, plus whatever else you reveal. So, like, tribute gets stupid strong the more you play them. So in that case, tribute's amazing, but, like, it needs nobles, and you have to know your opponent's going to go for nobles. And, like, there's nothing else reasonable to go for. Like, if you open, like, if there was a other good strategy to go for, and you open tribute, the opponent can just go, alright, I'm not getting nobles. And then your tributes are just shit. And then the opponent can then get tribute if you decide you want the nobles. I don't know. Like, there's things to think about like that, but like, I don't know. It's such an RNG card. Like, it can be really good, and then it can be really bad. It's just kind of meh, mostly. Like, yeah, I can't imagine ever wanting to play with tribute ever again. I think that's it, right? That's it. Alright, let's talk about the Intrigue sets now. We got a lot to talk about. There's some interesting cards, like Lurker, and there's all kinds of interesting cards. So let's start with Courtyard. Courtyard draws you 3 cards. You put a card from your hand onto your deck, and gives you... It costs 2 money. So, I guess this is the perfect time to mention, in simulations, Courtyard money is better than Smithy money, because you can use Courtyard to maybe set up your turns. Like, if you hit 9 money, you can top deck a copper. So you can just slightly, very slightly, set up your next turns. If you draw a Courtyard with your Courtyard, you can top deck it. So it just makes your strategy more, what's the word? Consistent. It makes your strategy more consistent than just Smithy money. It really has nothing to do with the cost at all. Of course, the more Courtyards you play, the less draw you get. Like, you're only drawing 2 cards with Courtyard, so if you play a Courtyard and then you play another Courtyard, the setup that you're doing with Courtyard gets progressively worse and worse and worse, and really it's only the last Courtyard you play that matters for this. So, Courtyard gets worse the more of them you add, but if you have only 1 Courtyard, like, opening Courtyard is actually quite common. It's a very good opening. For this reason, you can set up your next turn. Let's say you open Courtyard Silver and draw Courtyard turn 3. Well, there's 12 cards in the deck, because you have 7 coppers, 3 estates, Courtyard, and Silver. Well, let's play our Courtyard. We drew 3 cards, right? So 5, 6, 7, 8. Then we top deck a card for that to be 7. We're very more likely to know what's in our next hand, right? I'm sorry. Alright, so 5. So we got 12 cards in total. 12 minus 5 is 7. So Courtyard takes your 7 and turns it into a 5. So you can guarantee what your next turn is, right? Like, let me show you. I'm just gonna show you. I can describe it, sure, but I want to show. And we're just gonna keep rolling until we get a a game with where we find Courtyard turn 3. I just want to roll it. So Courtyard Silver. Okay. Well, let's just imagine we drew Courtyard here. Well, we play our Courtyard. We draw 3 cards, so 7 minus 3 is 4. And then we put 1 on top. So we know what our next 5 cards are, automatically. So we can then decide, well, what do I want? Well, the total money we have in our deck is 9, so we can decide, like, what we want in terms of what we want to buy, right? Like, we could hit 6 and 3, that totals 9. We could hit 4 and 5, that totals 9. We could hit 7 and 2, potentially. That's a lot more rare. You have to draw, like, correctly with your Courtyard. You would have to find all 3 of your estates and 3 coppers with your Courtyard to decide that, and then in that case you can't really hit 4 and 5. So that's very rare. And you're never going to get 1 and 8. It's just impossible. So, yeah. So 4 and 5 and 6 and 3 are your most common options. And, well, 6 and 3 is nice. You can get Captain with that. You can get crop rotation with that. 3 is nice. You can get a Masquerade. Like, you can get a Bonfire. Like, there's interesting ideas you can do with that. And that's why cool, I already signed up for that. So that's why Courtyard's really interesting for openings, is for that reason. Courtyard Silver is actually quite a common opening for that. As a draw card by itself, it's pretty good early game for that reason. Especially after the opening, you can set up your turns. You need to track your deck, but if you're tracking your deck, Courtyard is just so invaluable. It does get weaker as the game goes on. You know, ignoring stuff like Vassal that plays the top card of your deck, in which case Courtyard is still quite nice. But Courtyard does get worse, but really a lot of Dominion is getting an early boost, getting an early lead. That's a lot of Dominion, if I'm going to be honest. Like, if you bottom deck your best cards and your opponent doesn't, he's going to do a lot. He's going to play those cards twice versus you playing those cards once, which is absolutely killer. And you can play the game perfectly all day long afterwards, and your opponent can make a bunch of mistakes, and you might come back and you might not. So it's Dominion is a lot about the early lead, and a lot of opening play is towards getting that early lead. Like, you might take a risk where, as second player, where, well, if you don't make this risk, you lose, and then if you do make the risk, well, you're just significantly ahead. So, yeah, there's just a lot of that theory and opening play, and I could talk about that in another video, I think. But I think Courtyard is a very good opening card. That's its best strength, is opening play, for sure. That's just the very basic of it. And then, like, you can combine that with other cards, too, like Ironmonger, Courtyard. Let's say you found Ironmonger and Courtyard turn 3. Well, you play your Ironmonger, you draw a card, you discard a card, and Courtyard will now make you trigger your shuffle turn 4. Well, you buy your card that you really want for turn 4, and you just drew a bunch of cards that are going to miss the shuffle that are bad. Like, that's great. Courtyard triggered your shuffle turn 4. Like, that's insane. And it did it probably better than Scavenger. So, because it's very likely you're going to draw your Courtyard and your Ironmonger and your card you just bought again, like, all together. So, like, that's very good, potentially. It also could be bad. It really depends on the situation. So that's Courtyard. It's very, very good as an opening card. Like, you should always strongly consider Courtyard in your opening plans. Its weaknesses, it doesn't draw so well, but it's also a draw card, but it's also terminal. It's a terminal card. And it doesn't actually draw 3 cards, it draws 2 cards. So I think realizing this is very important. Also, if Courtyard is your last play, you will never draw your deck. That's another, like, if you don't want to have a card on top of your deck, you need to make sure Courtyard is never your last draw. Those are its biggest hindrances, I think. Like, if you want a windfall, Courtyard can never be your last play, because then you'll never be able to windfall and get 3 golds. So, those are your biggest hindrances, I think. Stuff like that. Next, we're going to talk about Conspirator, a very, very good Dominion card. Costs 4 money. It gives you 2, and if you've played 3 or more actions this turn, and counting this, so if this is your 3rd action card played, in which case you get +1 card and +1 action. Otherwise, it's a terminal silver. So Conspirator is not a very good open. It can be okay if you know you're going to get a lot of action cards and you're going to buy a silver anyway. You might as well buy Conspirator, right? Conspirator is the same thing as a silver, but potentially better. So, there's that. I think that situation is pretty rare, though. Usually Conspirator is a card you want to get later. But Conspirator is it's a very good card. If you can proc the ability. So, I want to note some edge cases here. If you play a Band of Misfits, or if you play an Overlord as a Conspirator, that counts as 2 cards. Let me show you. Dark Ages, Band of Misfits. Play this as if it were a cheaper action in the supply. This is that card until it leads the play. So, you'll play your Band of Misfits, and then you play the Band of Misfits as a Conspirator. That's 2 actions right there. We go to Empires, same deal. Play this as if it were an action card in the supply costing up to 5. So we go back to Intrigue. If you've played 3 or more actions this turn, well, you've played your Band of Misfits, and then you play it as another card. So you've played it as 2 cards. So that's why that works. So that's something to note. So if you play a cantrip or something, and then you play your Overlord as a Conspirator, it will trigger. So keep that in mind. This card is a very good payload card. Like, imagine Grand Market, but without the plus buy. It's very... There's a real Grand Market comparison. Conspirator can be Grand Market, but without the buy, which is pretty significantly worse, but still. Conspirator wants money. I mean, Conspirator wants buys, for sure. So, if you're picking up a bunch of Conspirators, you do also want buy to go with the Conspirators. Otherwise, you're kind of wasting money. So, picking up a Market earlier, which will help you trigger your Conspirators, or a Market Square. There's a lot of buy cards out there in the world. Like, there's Pawn. Pawn helps you. I think the most difficult thing about Conspirator is like not overloading on them, but it's like if you draw a handful of Conspirators, your turn's a dud. That's over. You're done with. That's its biggest weakness, is you need ways to pretty much ensure you trigger your Conspirators. So you need to also throw in plenty of cantrips, which usually end up being villages. Like if you play a village and a draw card, hey, your Conspirators trigger. So it's pretty easy to trigger your Conspirators, but you do still need a way to trigger your Conspirators. So you'll need more than just 2 actions to play before Conspirator, because you're drawing 5 cards every turn, and soon, drawing 5 cards a turn at the start of the game isn't so bad, but it quickly becomes your biggest limiter, right? Because you'd love to play all your cards in a row, and you can do that, but depending on the 5 cards you draw every start of your turn, that ends up being your biggest limiter, and that's why Wharf is so amazing. It's not that it just draws you 2 cards and gives you a buy, it's that it does that the next turn. So you're drawing 7 cards. It's 2 extra cards you would have not drawn, which gives you better odds of drawing your deck, which means playing all of your cards versus some of your cards, which is a huge, significant difference. 7 cards is so much better than 5 cards. So, you have to keep your 5 card limitations in hand, and I will say durations don't count towards this, so if you have 5 Wharves in play and you play a Conspirator, it's not going to work. You have to play it this turn. But those wharves in play will help you find cards, which will help you find your Conspirator's trigger. So you have to keep all that in mind with Conspirator. Conspirator is I would say it's a very high tier to top tier payload card. Quite often in games where it's relevant, which is quite often, very tautologic. But very often Conspirators will just run, basically. Because you'll have cards like Mill. Hey, Mill helps you. Whoops. Oh, that looks kind of ominous. Yeah, Conspirator is just really nice. Like, it helps you draw your deck, and it gives you 2 money for doing so. It's just a silver that draws you a card, basically. That's like insane. It's super good. Conspirator's a great payload card. Next, we're going to talk about Courtier. Costs you 5. Reveal a card from your hand for each type it has: action, attack, etc. So we look at replace here, action and attack. So it's looking at this. Here, action and reaction. Let's go to Knights. Action, attack, knight. So 3 there. So things like that. It's looking at those. For each, you can choose one. +1 action, +1 buy, +3 coins, or you can gain a gold. So there's Dame Josephine. People joke that Courtier buffed Dame Josephine because it's got 4 options, because in addition to attack, knight, and action, it's also got victory. So you can select all 4 options with Courtier automatically, and it caps at 4. So if you've got something with 6 types, you're still only going to get to choose all 4 of those types, and you have to choose all 4. So if you don't want the gold, well, tough luck, you're going to get the gold. So maybe reveal something with less types if you don't want the gold. And the choices must be different. So you can't choose plus action 4 times, or +1 buy 4 times, or 4 golds. It would be a lot better if you could do that, actually. It really would. So, Courtier. Courtier is a card that probably shouldn't be your first 5 unless you know for a fact you're only single provincing and you just want golds. In which case, Courtier is actually a fine first 5 to buy. Of course, Courtier shines best when you have cards with more than 1 type. If you have just cards that are just 1 type, it's actually rather mediocre. And Courtier then either is a gold gainer or a terminal gold, which is okay for money, I suppose. It's not the worst thing, and you will pick it up if the kingdom is that bad. But usually kingdoms aren't that bad. So usually you'll know straight away, well, whether or not Courtier is really any good. Worst case scenario, Courtier in an engine is a ruined market for 5, which is something you'll absolutely buy, so it's still rather crucial. So like Courtier will have uses even in engines, even if there is no multi-type card. It's just going to be a lot harder to justify, but the buy is still there. It can still gain golds, which can be remodeled into provinces. So, like, it still has gaining aspects and it has buy aspects. So, the scaling is there with Courtier, even in its worst case scenario. And the worst case scenario is actually rather uncommon. In most kingdoms you draw, you will find at least 1 card that's an action and something else, or harem. You know, you will find on average a card that is a split type. So the biggest pitfall for Courtier is that it does not help you draw your deck. And in fact, it helps you not draw your deck. Because if you gain a gold with it at any time, you're not drawing, like, that's an extra card you have to draw. That gold is a card you have to draw. So Courtier gets a significantly better to pick up in the immediate term if you know you're not drawing your deck and there's no possible way for you to draw your deck, in which case gold in general gets better if you can gain it. Depending on what you're trying to do. Sometimes this isn't the case. You're just going to have to make that judgment. And Courtier also gets significantly better if you are drawing your deck. So what you can do is you draw your deck, you play your Courtier, you reveal something, get action in gold, and then you draw the gold. Well, that's 3 more money than you would have had. You just gain and play the gold, which is way better than just gaining a gold. You get immediate value out of it. Courtier also supplies the buy, so like Courtier turns into a middle to high tier payload card on a kingdom. Like, it can be absolutely pivotal, but you want to draw your deck before picking it up, or like know you're going to draw your deck as you're picking it up. Like, it's no use being robotic and saying, alright, I drew my deck, now I know for sure I drew my deck, now I'll pick up my Courtier. Sometimes you'll pick it up a turn or 2 early, because you know you're going to draw your deck. Or maybe, like, you know, you might pick it up earlier than that even, if you just want a gold, and then you know you're going to draw your deck soon anyway. But, like, you have to be careful. Courtier is best when you know you're never going to draw your deck no matter what. And if your opponent draws their deck when you think that, like, you're just lost because you have no concept of how possible drawing your deck is, in which case you need to improve that. Anyway, yeah, that's kind of how I approach Courtier. Opening it, I mean, you're not realistically going to open it ever, even if you hit 5. I don't know, like, it doesn't seem that good to open. It might be okay, but it's like opening gold, or opening a gold gainer, it seems really awful. You can usually do better with 5 costs. Next up is Baron, a card that is kind of seen like a, I don't know, like, it's, like, if there was like a chart of how good Baron was viewed, I'm pretty sure it was like, it spiked up early, then it went really down, and now it's gone up again. I feel like that's how people have approached Baron. I could be wrong. That's how I approached Baron. So, take that with a grain of salt or 2. But, Baron costs 4, gives you +1 buy. You may discard an estate for 4, and if you don't, you gain an estate. So, playing Baron and not having an estate in hand may be catastrophic if you don't have an estate in hand. It can be catastrophic because you gain a junk card. There are times where you do want this estate, though, and I'm going to go into detail about that right now, I guess. The number 1 combo for Baron is Inheritance, right? So let's say you draw a Baron, 3 coppers, and an estate. That's the god hand. Because you play your Baron, you toss your estate, and then you hit 7 and you buy Inheritance. And then Baron can gain you an estate. Or you can use Baron to toss an estate and have 4 money and an extra buy. So you can buy whatever you wanted and then an estate with it. Of course, you don't get to play your estate whatever you inherited it as. So that could be bad, potentially. So, and I don't suggest inheriting Baron. That doesn't seem very good. So, you know, you'll have to evaluate how to best optimize your turn. That's part of the difficulty of Dominion. If it were simple and I could explain it to you right here, then, well, AI would have ruled Dominion long ago, probably. So, Baron is a fine opener. It's a good spiker, in much the same way as Coppersmith that I mentioned earlier today. It's better than Coppersmith at spiking 6, I think, because it retains its value. And it mainly retains its value because it's got a +buy on it. And I think if Coppersmith had +buy on it, it would still be worse than Baron, but maybe not. Maybe it would be better than Baron. It'd be worse than Baron because you still want to clear out your coppers. Whereas with Baron, you just need 1 estate. With Coppersmith, you still need, like, multiple coppers. Like, Baron would still be better in the very best of... But, like, I don't know. I apologize for that sniffle. So, Baron's a decent payload card. It's kind of swingy, but if you land it every time, it's pretty nice. Also, he looks kind of like Colonel Sanders, so you can think about that every time you draw Baron. He looks rather pissed. He looks really pissed. That's funny. I never really looked at it, like how pissed Baron was, but like oh, he's mad. This is from way over there. It looks really funny. Yeah. Baron's a payload card. Like, after you open your Baron, and that's assuming you want to open it, but, like, you're probably not gonna buy a Baron if you don't open it until you're drawing your deck, or close to it. Just because you want to guarantee you get your payload option out of it. Of course, Baron, to gain an estate, sometimes gaining a junk card for a reason is pretty okay. It can be okay. I'm trying to... I've run into these situations, but they're kind of rare, right? Like, let's say you draw your deck, you play your Baron, and you kind of want to gain a 3 cost, and you have your buy anyway, right? So, like, the 4 coins, you don't need the 4 coins, but you have the buy. So, you could play your Baron, not discard your estate, but that doesn't work, because then you just do the same trick anyway. So, like, alright, let's see, you have 1 estate left. You want to keep the estate. This is very convoluted. Let's say, like, but it gives you an idea as to, like, you have to think about these things to, like, optimize your turns, potentially. So let's say you have 1 estate left. You want to keep the estate. So you play your Baron. You don't need the money for this particular turn. So you gain an estate. Then you play your Necromancer as a Mason to kill the estate, gaining a 3 cost, and then you can draw that 3 cost and play it. Like, that's very convoluted, but things like that can happen in Dominion. They absolutely can. And also, situations happen where you don't need money, but you need points to win. Like, let's say you hit 16, but you only have 1 Baron play, and you want to win, potentially. So you play your Baron, you don't toss your estate, you gain your estate, and then you buy double province and you win by 1 point, versus playing your Baron, tossing your estate, having 16, and you can only tie or even lose. So the estate gain with Baron overtaking the 4 coins absolutely can be pivotal in some situations. It is rare, but it is also possible to come up, and you have to consider that whenever you're playing your Baron. If money is not an object for Baron, like, you just want the buy and the point out of it, you know, as a shitty monument variant, sure, it can work. But yeah, Baron is a pretty middling card. It's not all that great. Its best case is opening it to use it as a spiker, and then afterwards it could be a decent payload card. But, like, it's best when you draw most of your deck, because then you found an estate, and you still get to trash those other 2 estates. Like, if you keep 3 estates around just for Baron, it's, like, bad. Ideally, you want to kill all your estates and then always find an estate with Baron, and the only way to ever do that is to draw your deck. And after that, you can use your Baron to toss your estate, draw the estate back, play your second Baron, toss the estate, which can get convoluted. And then in cases like that where that doesn't work too well, maybe you'll even keep 2 estates around to play 2 Barons, because the payload is significant. I mean, it's 2 cards for 4 money. Like, that's pretty decent value, plus a buy. Like, you get, for 4 cards, you get 8 money and 2 buys. That's not bad at all. That's actually quite good value. Especially 2 cards that you start with already. Like, you didn't have to buy them. You already had them in your deck. You just have to buy 2 Barons. So that's okay. Baron's okay. It can be good. Next up, we have Bridge. Bridge is an insanely good card. It's incredible. Like, bridge is insane. Like, I'm just gonna say it straight out. Bridge is insane. Every time bridge is on the board, you need to think of making it work. Sometimes it doesn't work, but you need to always think of a way to make it work. So it costs 4, +1 buy, +1 coin. And this turn, cards everywhere cost 1 less, but not less than 0. So when you play your bridge, let's say you drew your bridge with 4 coppers. Now you have $5 and everything costs 1 less. So you can buy a 3 and a 2 cost, which was a 4 and a 3 cost earlier, and you've gotten a gold's worth of value out of this bridge. Secretly, if you look at bridge is already a silver and a buy. Like, that's pretty good value for a bridge, and it only multiplies. But like, already, just on one bridge play, it's a silver. Because it makes everything cost 1 less, which is $1, and then you also get $1. So, just by itself, it's a silver. And if you buy 2 cards, well, that's 2 less money you would have had to spend, which means it's a gold. That's not a great way to think about bridge, but it's a starting point to think about bridge if you're going to compare it. I tend to think that's like a cheap way to think about bridge. That's like thinking of bridge like, oh, I save $4 if I go to Costco, which is 50 miles away, and I actually lose a lot of gas, which actually costs me more than if I had gone to this store, which cost me 4 more, but it's like way less than the gas price. Like, that's like a cheap way of thinking about bridge. Like, you're not thinking in the long term if you're thinking of bridge like that. What bridge is amazing at is, of course, its cost reduction. If you play like 5 bridges, all the 5 costs cost 0, and you're capped by your buys rather than your money, which is pretty insane. If you play 7 bridges, you just pile out the provinces, pretty much. Not even pretty much, you just straight up do. Because you play 7 bridges, which is 7 coins, 7 buys, and you plus your buy you already have. And, yeah, I mean, buying 7 provinces is very rarely ever losing. If you can buy 7 provinces, you just straight up win. So usually buying 6 provinces is absolutely just winning, and as soon as you hit 6 provinces, you'll just buy those 6 provinces, and then, well, if there's no alt VP on the board, there's no way for your opponent to ever win, so you just slowly pile out the board. And bridge, if you can play enough bridges in a turn, that's a win con. That's a massive win con. Win con being short for win condition. So, usually when you're playing Dominion, you kind of look at cards and you're like, alright, what's my win condition? So like Courtyard, alright, well, a nice way to get to a win condition is to draw at turn 3, I play my Courtyard and I set up my turns, and then I can buy whatever I want. I have complete control over that. Courtyard gets you towards a win condition. Bridge by itself, if you play enough bridges, is a win condition. Because by its nature, bridge can just pile out easily and score a ton easily. So if you have a way to play a ton of bridges and increase your hand size in order to play villages and then bridges, that's a win condition. So bridge by itself enables win conditions. At least win condition ideas, which may or may not manifest themselves depending on everything else on the board. If there are no villages, bridge gets significantly worse. It's still a card you might absolutely pick up because, you know, you'll play a bunch of labs and then end your turn playing bridge, but you'll never play more than 1 bridge. Of course, there's capitalism as well. Capitalism makes your bridges non-terminal, so capitalism and bridge is an insane combo. Something to note, bridge does not decrease the cost of capitalism, because capitalism is, I believe, an event. Right? No, it's a project, right? There it is. Yeah, so it's not going to decrease the cost of this, just cards. But, like, capitalism and bridge go pretty well together for this reason. But yeah, bridge, whenever there's bridges on the board, you always have to consider, like, ways to play with it. It's an insane card. And there are other cards that are like this. Such as Bridge Troll and Inventor, and those cards for other reasons too, but also this reason are just pretty damn insane. So always keep an eye out for bridge. Next, I guess we'll mention that Bridge and Royal Carriage, I think, is a real combo. I think you just play Bridge, and then you just buy as many Royal Carriages as you can, and then you pop Royal Carriage on Bridge only if it gets you more Royal Carriages, and then you just tuck all your Royal Carriages, and then you one turn you play your Bridge, you proc all your Royal Carriages, and then just win. That's a thing you can do. If you don't know what Royal Carriage is, let's show you. Royal Carriage is basically a throne room variant that you set aside, and whenever you play an action, you can just call it. So it's a known combo with Bridge. There are a lot of known combos with Bridge. One combo I'm not mentioning is Native Village Bridge, because that's fake. That's not really a real combo. I guess I'll describe it now since we're on the topic. But Native Village is here. It's like you put a card, you put the top card of your deck face down on your Native Village mat, and you can look at these cards, so you know what they are. So you can either put the top card of your deck face down, or you can put all the cards from that mat into your hand. So the idea of it is that you open Native Village Bridge, you buy all the Native Villages, and you buy a bunch of bridges, and then you set aside all these cards, and then on one turn you just pop, and then pile out. That's so slow and so inconsistent, though. Like, just as often you'll set aside a good bridge as, like, anything else. It's, like, really not that consistent. It can win, but it's, like, not that good. People still talk about it like it's a real combo, and it's, like, the weakest of combos. Usually a pretty good deck will just beat it. So Diplomat, plus 2 cards. If you have 5 or few cards in hand after drawing, plus 2 actions. When you play a Diplomat just naked in a 5-card hand, you draw 6. So for Diplomat to work, you want to have a 4-card hand, including Diplomat, and then you play your Diplomat and you draw up to 5 cards. So if you play a disappearing action, such as a festival, which we covered in the base, Diplomat procs and you get your village out of it. So, also Diplomat's reaction here. When another player plays an attack card, you may first reveal this from a hand of 5 or more cards to draw 2 cards and then discard 3. So if you reveal this to an attack, you start with a 4-card hand, which means for the cost of tossing an estate or a copper, probably, you get to look for more good cards from Diplomat, and then you play your Diplomat and get an action out of it, and then you get your 5-card hand anyway off of your Diplomat, so you just get an action for the cost of tossing 1 copper. You get to cycle 4 cards. Of course, sometimes you end up having to toss a good card. But you also have to think about it in the case of, well, okay, but, you know, it's still better than not doing it. There are cases where you don't want to reveal your Diplomat when you know your turn's going to be amazing already and you don't want to toss any of your cards. Like, your best case isn't going to get any better, and the 4-cost hand, you know, like the 4-card hand isn't. Anyway, those are just things to take in stride, to consider with Diplomat. Opening Diplomat, I wouldn't really recommend, although it's not the worst idea in the world. Like, for example, if you know you want to quest for gold, like, you can buy Diplomat. It's pretty rare. Like, you could just buy Diplomat in the open and then play it and then discard 6 cards for a gold. You could do that. Like, but that's all draw cards, really. And I guess that's more of a quest-specific thing than a Diplomat-specific thing. Like, we're trying to focus on Diplomat-specific things. Like, opening Diplomat is pretty meh. Like, you don't really have a use for the action, and you really don't have a way to trigger the action anyways. So if you're opening Diplomat, it's because you want to draw 2 cards, mainly to cycle. and you're opening Diplomat with the idea of, I'm going to trigger this in the future, and I do want a Diplomat in my deck in the future. So, cards that kind of just vanish, like Ironworks and Lurker, or or Pawn, or some card, or Shantytown. These are the cards that Diplomat shines the most with. Diplomat is kind of pseudo draw to X. It's not capped by draw to X, but it works best if you view it as a draw to X. So, like, Diplomat can be a source of actions if your opponent plays a bunch of attacks. So your opponent playing an attack enables your engine, in a way. Especially if it's the only source of actions. So what your opponent can do to absolutely fuck you is never play an attack. Now, some kingdoms, this isn't possible. Urchin. You open a double Urchin, and you're going to be tempted to play those Urchins. So your opponent's game plan, or his potential game plan, let me show you Urchin real quick. Urchin's just an attack that's a cantrip, and it turns into Mercenary, which is just an insane card. It's a rather relevant card that we'll talk about later. So, like, your opponent's game plan, if your only village is Diplomat, is kill all of his Urchins as fast as he can, and then never play his Mercenary again, so that your Diplomat never triggers. So he'll pull ahead. Yeah, you'll do stuff with your Diplomat, and then his plan will be to, ideally, to never play his attack cards again, which will hurt you, because then you can't do all the stuff you wanted to do. So, like, you have to keep those kinds of plans in mind, that your opponent at any time could just decide, fuck it, I'm not playing my attack card. So now you have to find a way to proc your Diplomat in a way that's not an attack, which is pretty hard, potentially. So that's the big scary thing about Diplomat, is if your opponent pulls the rug from under you and doesn't play an attack card to trigger your Diplomat, do you have other ways to trigger your Diplomat? And if not, are you still going to rely super heavily on Diplomats? Like, is the opponent playing an attack card just that good that, like, he's willing to give you actions and cycling? That's something you're going to have to judge for yourself. I don't really have a case-by-case... It's pretty case-by-case. Like, I don't have a specific general rule of thumb for this. But it's a lot to think about. Definitely. It's definitely a lot to think about. Yeah, Diplomat as your only source of action is very interesting. If you have no way to trigger it, then you have no way to trigger it. If you have a way to trigger it, and the only way to trigger it is, like, opponent attacks, that's also interesting. Like, say, like, with, Replace or something. And I say, Replace is the only way to trigger Diplomat. Well, you can play a Replace to trash a card, then you can Diplomat, but, like, you still need an opponent's attack to get to 4 cost in the first place in order to play your Replace to trash a card to trigger your Diplomat again. Like, you still rely on your opponent playing Replace, and in that case, playing Replace is more valuable because it allows you to do even more with your turn than if you had just not played it at all, in which case you're capped at 2 actions. And then you decide, yeah, I'm not going to play my Replace and potentially screw my opponent's turn. Which is very interesting, right? Like, that's an interesting dynamic. Replace and Diplomat as only village. No other villages on the board is, like, a very interesting, like, strategy where you can, like, alright, I know my opponent has a bunch of Diplomats in hand, and if I don't play this Replace, I get a free turn. And if I do play the Replace, I give him a potentially good turn. Whereas if I didn't play it, he would have had a terrible turn. So is it worth it for me to do less good on my turn in order to potentially completely screw my opponent? I mean, I don't get to play a Replace at all when I skip my turn, versus if I continue the cycle of mutual benefit, in as much that, like, besides the cursing bit, playing a Replace benefits your opponent a little bit by allowing them to play more cards and cycle. So, like, there's a lot to think about with that, I think. Duke is a very hard card to evaluate. It's a very hard card to evaluate. It also looks like he has, like, squid guts on his head. It's also a really weird art in general. So it costs 5, and it's worth 1 victory card per duchy you have. Generally, Duchy Duke isn't a thing, but that's not always the case. It's really hard to evaluate Duchy Duke, right? Like, let's just roll... I think we need to roll some boards to, like, talk about it. Because, like, I think it's that hard to talk about without, like, looking at specific boards. Like, here, Duchy Duke is kind of laughable because there's Legionary and Gold. So you're never going to hit 5, so it's, like, realistically not ever, like, going to be a thing. Like, you just want to buy a bunch of provinces, and you can get away with that. There is Horse Trader's Duke. There is Horse Trader's Duke, which is not nothing. But you need a lot of Horse Traders. And your opponent has Lowell, he has Wharf, Lowell, he has Peddler, Lowell, he has Bazaar and Legionary and Gear and Mill. Like, it's too fast. Like, Duke is going to get smashed by provinces. You're going to pile the provinces way too fast. So, like, you have to consider with Duchy Duke whether or not your opponent can outscore you by emptying the provinces really fast. Here's another case where Duchy Duke is absolute possible shit. Something that I don't see people think about is tournament gaining duchies for Duke. But that's usually because tournament has Lowell, he has Princess, Lowell, he has Followers, and Steed, all of which are better than gaining a duchy. So you look at this board and you think, alright, what's the absolute best way I can smash my opponent? Well, there's Peasant, which is going to be really fast. There's Tournament. There's Sinister Plot. This board's way too fast for Duchy Duke. There's no way Duchy Duke is going to work. Like, there's 1,000,000,001 ways to get absolutely murdered here, from Ambassador to Tournament to Peasant. If you ignore any of those, you're just dead. There's even Council Room. You can draw your opponent tons and tons of cards and then make them discard all of them with Followers. There's Abundant Villages, there's Princess. Like, it's suicide to play Duchy Duke here. Probably, possibly more suicide than the last board. We're going to find a good Duchy Duke board eventually, I promise. Here... is just Colony, right? But it's not as clear, right? So you see Triumph on the board. Alright, how can I gain cards? Well, I can gain cards via Marauder, which I can use to reveal a lucky Ruin Market to pick up. Marauder is great when... well, Marauder is great for twofold reasons. One, it junks your opponent. And your only trashing here is Research and Bishop, one of which is also beneficial to your opponent, so Bishop's kind of bad-ish. But you still might want it on this board just because it's VP that you get and your opponent doesn't, even though they thin the same amount as you, so Bishop could be relevant here. But also, Marauder helps you dig for the ruin you really want here, which is Ruin Market. There's nothing here. There is no plus buy. So you're going to open Marauder for the Ruin Market sweepstakes to pick up Ruin Market. That's just a thing you're going to do. You kind of just have to. I don't know if you open Marauder or if you open Research. I think you open Research, but then you get a Marauder as fast as you can. And then you have to consider, alright, well, Duchy Duke, is that going to outscore like a Haunted Woods deck? No, Haunted Woods just murders Duchy Duke. That alone is just enough to shut down Duchy Duke. Like, that's not going to happen. So you already know Duchy Duke is impossible there, because it's just going to get murdered. Here, Duchy Duke... like, you're starting to realize that, like, Duchy Duke just doesn't outpace provinces a lot of the time. That's its biggest weakness. Usually there's just something you can do on the board that just kills Duchy Duke. But you have to realize that, like, Duchy Duke can outscale provinces if the game goes along long enough and your opponent just can't get enough provinces. Pardon me. So, like, let me give you an example. So, like, duchies, you have 5 duchies, right? That's 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 points. That's 2 provinces. That's more than 2 provinces. And then you buy a duke, which is worth 5 at that point. So you have 15, 20 points, 25, 30, 35, 40. So 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. That's 5 dukes. 5 dukes times 5 is 25 points, which is a lot. So 5 duchies plus 5 dukes, that's 10 turns. It'll take you more than 10 turns because, you know, you have to, you're going to have some turns where you don't hit 5. But that's 40 points. How many points does it take for, like, how many provinces does it take to get to 40? 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36, 42. It takes 7 provinces to outscore that by 2 points. 7 provinces. So in ignoring Duchy Duke, and at any time here, I can buy another duchy. Because at some point, buying the duchy is going to be worth more than the duke. You don't always run duchies with, like, in the mirror, you run the duchies and then you run the dukes. But if you're playing this solo, you buy 5 duchies, then you start buying the dukes. And if your opponent buys duchies to, like, deny you, well, that just gives you opportunity to buy more dukes later, because they're not buying provinces when they're buying those duchies. So your opponent has to get 7 provinces to outscore 5 duchies and 5 dukes. So duchy and duke scales better, but the scaling takes a long time. So you have to look at a board and say, all right, am I realistically going to hit 8 provinces before anything else? And I look at this board, I see the trashing here is develop. That's kind of shit. I look at this, there's minion. That's also kind of shit. The draw here is pretty shit. The only draw is warrior off of page, right? And I guess technically squint minion. You can use minion and page to, like, cycle pretty fast. Young Witch is cycling, it's not really draw. Border Guard isn't really draw. So here I could envision Duchy Duke working. I don't know if it would, because Tomb is available to the person who doesn't play Provinces, so I assume Provinces still wins here. I'm pretty sure Provinces still wins here, in fact. But it's not as clear-cut, and you have to think about it a little bit, I think. Plus there's patron. Is there a patron reveal you can do here? I'm not seeing it. Oh, there's Border Guard. Border Guard patron is, like, pretty good reveal. Yeah, I mean, provinces should still win here, but I think that's the closest example we're gonna get, rolling just random boards. So, like, that's kind of how I approach Duchy Duke, and it's not clear. Like, it's not easy to, like, it's not easy to envision when Duchy Duke is good. Like, it takes a single province board where it's not too easy to hit province, but it's easy to hit 5 for Duchy Duke to really shine, and then, well, okay, can you get to 5 duchies and 5 dukes faster than your opponent could get to 7 provinces? Well, if you can, you probably win. That's kind of the best way to put it, I think. That's really the best way I can put it. Duke's a pretty deep and complicated card. Even if it's not very good, it's very complicated, I think. I spent a lot of time on Duke. Next we have Harem, which is a laughable card. It's really not that good. As I said earlier, I thought it was an outtake when I was, like, really tired and making this video earlier. I just clicked on Harem, I'm like, yeah, and I was treating it like it was an outtake, and it was, like, funny when I realized it wasn't. Really, you could have swapped this out for Coppersmith, and I think a lot of people agreed with that, but it stayed in the game. So, we got, it costs 6. It gives you 2 coins and 2 victory points. It is better than gold, squintily. Like, there's more value here than if you get a gold. So it is better than gold, but, like, that's not really saying anything, A, because you can't gain harems over golds with gold gainers, and B, which is, like, when gold is okay, like, you're okay gaining golds. And, like, if you're really at, like, the point where you're buying a gold, A, you might be buying a gold because you need that 3 money immediately to spike, like, a price point that harem just doesn't spike, in which case gold is better than harem. Otherwise, harem is just better. So, like, it's a pretty specific case when harem is better. Like, it has to be a position where you want to buy a gold, but you don't care about price points, really, and in that point, harem is a better card because it provides you 2 VP. That's very specific. That's a very specific position, and usually you don't want to buy treasure cards that are, like, just for the money. Usually, like, there's Charm, right? Charm can gain you multiple cards. There's Horn of Plenty. Horn of Plenty can gain you cards. So they're like workshop variants. Like, Harem's not a workshop variant. It's just a silver with 2 VP attached. Like, it's way different and way worse. That being said, I think people tend to undervalue Harem. They just look at Harem and then just kind of ignore it. And they're like, oh, whatever. Who cares? Like, if you can get a Harem and then mint away all your coppers and just mint Harem a bunch of times, that can work. That can be good. I'm not saying it's easy or that it's even possible, but, like, if you can do that in a reasonable amount of time, that's actually quite good. That's, like, a lot of VP there. And silvers, when clustered together, are, like, just as fine as gold, usually. And then you score off of it, too. So, like, any offset you would get in purchasing power, because, like, oh, your opponent can just buy province and duchy. Well, you get a bunch of harems out of it. So, like, you're gonna outscore, potentially. So, like, there's ideas like that. I had a game recently where you realistically weren't going to hit more than province, and my opponent was buying golds, and I was buying harems. And the only draw was stables, too. So I was scoring points because, alright, my thinking here was, alright, I'm either using harem to discard for my stables, or it's going to be part of my final payload. And if I'm tossing a gold, it's the same value than if I'm tossing a harem, but I also get 2 points out of a harem, so it's better in that case. And then in the other case, the best you're doing is province, and the maybe extra couple of turns I'm spending not buying province is offset by the harem's VP. So harem is actually a better card in that specific deck. So you have to think about it like that. You have to think about, alright, is the 2 VP I'm getting out of harem worth the slightly less monetary value I'm getting out of the out of skipping gold? And I say usually it is, especially if you are buying multiple golds. The harem starts stacking. It's like, yeah, maybe you hit one less province, but, like, you get more VP out of it in the long term. I think. I don't know. I think harem's a harder card to evaluate than people think it is. It's not as hard as, like, Duke, but I think people just tend to dismiss it, and probably correctly, but I think there's a lot of decks where buying a harem is just better than not buying a harem, and people tend to, like, squint and just be like, oh, it's harem, whatever, it's a meme, it has terrible art, let's just ignore it. Next we have Nobles, Nobles is also a pretty hard card to evaluate, because if Nobles is the only plus action on the board in a really ridiculous engine, you're going to pay 6 just for the 2 actions, which makes it absolutely insane. But if it's not the only plus actions, then you're buying 6 for a Smithy variant with 2 VP attached, which also comes with all of the questions that harem has, but for draw instead of money, which makes it both better and worse at the same time, but usually better. So with Nobles, you get the flexibility of +2 actions or +3 cards, which is not that amazing. So you either get a Necropolis out of Nobles, or you get a Smithy draw out of Nobles, but you also get 2 VP for buying in Nobles. So in a single province deck, the person with the more Nobles will probably win the game. So, like, because your opponent's also going to go for the Nobles, right? Because they want to make their deck more consistent. So if you grab 5 Nobles and they grab 3, that means they're 4 points behind. And your deck is more consistent, and you're going to probably province better than they can. And you also have more VP for it. So you would think at a certain point your opponent does some kind of gambit and goes like, alright, I accept I'm probably going to lose the Noble split, So I need to gung-ho for the provinces, and I need to province first. And I need to get lucky and hit province just as consistently as the guy with more nobles. So, like, there's a meta to that I think not enough people think about. They just are like, oh, I need a nobles, and then they click it. And they need to kind of accept at a certain point maybe they don't hit nobles. Or it's, like, too late. Like, oh, there's 2 nobles left. And we both have 2 of them. 3 of them. Yeah, 2 nobles left, and both players have 3 of them. And, like, one of them misses nobles at 5. Well, okay. Maybe you hit nobles next turn. If you're really not, like, if you really don't think you can hit 6 next turn, you might be in trouble. Like there's also, like, you have to, like, think about situations like that with nobles, where it's like, alright, well, you missed nobles. Does that mean the game is potentially over? Well, potentially not, right? Because then you hit nobles next turn, your opponent buys nobles this turn, and then it's just a question of tempo, right? Because now your opponent gets first crack at the provinces, whereas you would have had first crack at the provinces before, but you missed nobles. So how important is nobles then, really? Like, are you going to skip the last 2 nobles and let him take them and you just buy other stuff? In order to potentially pull ahead by getting tempo on the provinces? Like, there's things to think about here. And it's really hard to talk about without seeing the rest of the board. But these are things, like, people need to think about, like, especially with these cards, with, like, VP attached to them. It's a very interesting card, definitely. It's an expensive card, but it's usually quite a dominant card. When is it not good? This is hard to quantify. Value-wise, nobles does make your deck slightly better. And it gives you VP for the cost of 6. I tend to see people just buy nobles straight up when it's not really improving their deck. Like, they're already drawing their deck and then they're buying a bunch of nobles. That doesn't really improve their deck at all. They would have been better off buying a different card. I think that's the pitfall for nobles. People just think, oh, it's nobles, I gotta grab it. Even though it really doesn't help their deck, they would have been better off buying a different card, or like maybe a plus buy card, or maybe more money, and then they can go into the nobles, and then it's better for them. I think that's the kind of when it's not good, is when it doesn't do as much for your deck as, like, say, going for other things does. Don't just blindly grab nobles. Kind of have a plan, I suppose. Ironworks is 4 coins, gain a card costing up to 4. If the gained card is an action card, you get +1 action, so it becomes non-terminal if you gain an action card. If you gain a treasure card, it gives you +1 money. So if you gain a silver, it gives you an immediate 1 coin. Huh, it's better than Bureaucrat. And if you gain a victory card, you draw a card. So if you play Ironworks and gain a mill, you draw an action, and then you draw a card, and then you gain an action. So Ironworks becomes a cantrip just because it gained a mill. So, like, there's stuff like that that's pretty cute. Ironworks used to be the darling of card gainers because of this, where you could just play an Ironworks non-terminally and gain a card, and then also play another terminal and do something with it. So, like, Ironworks is pretty efficient. Nowadays, I feel like it's dropped off a bit, but it's still pretty good. Like, if you just want to gain all of the classic example for, like, amazing 4 cost always tends to be Ironmonger, because it is amazing. So if you want to gain all the Ironmongers, yeah, go ahead. Pick up an Ironworks, open one for sure. But, otherwise, like, sometimes you'll use Ironworks to just slam all the mills. Because, you know, because you can. Because why not? Like, you might as well. Like, you can do that. That's a thing you can do. You can score, like, upwards of 8 points that your opponent just doesn't score because you do that. And that could be useful. It also could be awful, but, like, it really depends on the board. Like, if you use Ironworks to gain some, like, gain something that you really wanted to gain, a couple of those, and then just use it to slam mills afterwards, it could be pretty good. Really, for Ironworks to ever be good, you really need something you want to gain costing up to 4. Otherwise, it's not so good. Obviously, like, it's just Workshop, but with, like, a couple of cute benefits. Basically. Like, if there was Ironworks and Workshop and Ironmonger on the board, that's confusing. I would probably open Ironmonger Workshop, because the bonuses don't matter for me. I just want to win the Ironmonger split. So I open an Ironmonger and a Workshop, which gives me +1 Ironmongers that my opponent doesn't have. And it's not like these bonuses will help my opponent get more Ironworks. I guess you could open Ironworks Workshop. Maybe that's better. I don't know. But I feel like once the Ironmongers run, I don't really want a Workshop that much on this theoretical 3-card board. And having the Ironmonger helps me cycle faster. And by the time the 2 cards matter more than the cycling, like, the Ironmongers are pretty much gone. I don't know. I'd have to do the math on that. That seems like a interesting question, though. Probably one worth answering. It's very, very specific, but I think you could take that specific scenario to multiple scenarios, potentially. So that's interesting to consider. But yeah, Ironworks, I think, is a middling card. It's definitely lost some steam. Like, Inventor has just completely supplanted it as, like, the gold standard of card gainers. Inventor being in Renaissance. Inventor being stupidly good. Like, oh my god, Inventor. Like, fuck you, Inventor. You're insane. But yeah, like, Ironworks not being good is, like, when you don't want a 4 cost. Another thing you could do with Ironworks is, hey, I have a remodel variant, and I drew my deck, and I Ironworks gain something, draw it, and then remodel that thing into a better thing. So, like, there's stuff with gain in play. Ironworks can also gain an estate as an emergency draw. Like, there's things you can do with Ironworks, especially with cost reduction, that make Ironworks insane. Like, you play a single highway and Ironworks gains you a 5 cost, non-terminally. Like, what? That's really good. Of course, you have to find highway and Ironworks in the same hand, but you can use that Ironworks to gain a highway, and then you're more likely to connect it. It's just, like, stupid good. So, like, highway and cost reduction with Ironworks, especially if you can play that cost reduction first and then play the Ironworks, which highway is the premier example, but of course you've got Canal and all those other things. Like, Ironworks gets stupid good then, because it does what Workshop can never do, which is gain actions non-terminally. So, like, in that sense, Ironworks shines, like, really shines. And it's funny that we mention cost reduction. Well, Renaissance's Inventor has built-in cost reduction. So you gain your card, then the cost of stuff goes down by 1. So if you could play 2 Inventors, that's kind of like playing Highway and then Ironworks, but built into 1 card, which is part of its reasons why it's stupidly good. Like, what? It's insane. Inventor is, like, so broken. Like, way more broken than Ironworks, because it always has that potentiality, which I guess we're already tripping into Renaissance here. But, like, Ironworks can't do that by itself, which is why it's kind of fallen a bit. Next, we've got Lurker. Lurker is a very deep card. It's a very deep card, like, stupidly deep. It can be absolutely awful or, like, absolutely pivotal, and I feel like the in-betweens are, like, really hard to talk about. I wrote an article on Lurker, so I feel like I'm qualified more than most people to win with Lurker, because I feel like my win percentage with Lurker is pretty good. And even then, I'm like, yeah, Lurker's hard. You got 2 coins. It costs 2 coins, plus 1 action. Choose 1, trash an action card from the supply, or gain an action card from the trash. Pardon me. Fuck this sickness. Oh my god. So, like, I think the best way to talk about Lurker again is just kind of going into the, kind of going into a game here and just talking about Lurker. think this is the best way we can really approach it. So here we've got Lurker. Trashing is pretty shit. Like, you're gonna open Masquerade Silver probably. Maybe, no, maybe you don't do that. Maybe you open Overlord Silver. Or Silver Overlord, I should say. Like, let's see what we roll. Like, 3-4, like here I would buy Silver Overlord. Pay off my dad. Wow, my Overlord misses. I cry. I just buy Mask here. Plays Mountebank, probably. Buy my Vampire. Like, here I'm never buying Lurker. Like, you just... Alright, like, is there ever a scenario in this game where I draw my deck? Hey, that seems really hard. So you need, like, multiple Masquerades, and Treasurers, and Villages, and the draw's kind of shit. Like, it's just Mask. And then you use Vampires to gain Groundskeepers anyway. Yeah, Lurker is really bad here. So, like, you notice, like, that was not a good example for Lurker. This could be a really good example for Lurker, actually. Like, a lot better, potentially. But, like, you have to look at what Lurker's gaining. Alright, well, what can I gain with Lurkers? Well, I can gain a bunch of market squares, slap Pathfinding on it. Every time I trash a market square, I discard a bunch of them for golds, and then gain a market square. And then I, like, here, Lurker could be absolutely nuts. Like, you're opening Cathedral here. And now you need to hit 8. 8 is your next goal, so maybe we get a Bard over the market square. So, like, right now my #1 goal is hitting 8 for Pathfinding. And also getting a bunch of golds for market square. So maybe we do market square here already. We just keep slamming the market squares. Like, here we take the gold here. Market square again. Take all the golds. Slam market square. Maybe we want an Enchantress. Maybe we want an Enchantress somewhere in there. I probably want an Enchantress now. I think we do want to do this. Now we want to start on a Lurker. I think I want a Lurker here. Draw our cards. I don't think we want to discard more than 1 market square. So here's where we would, like, track our deck, right? Because ideally I want to buy Pathfinding Lurker. I think we want to try and draw our deck now. So, like, here, Pathfind market square, market square, and I think at that point it's just better than Lurker. Although I wouldn't kill the Lurker, because if my opponent doesn't go for Lurker, gaining a card once every 2 turns is still, like, incredible value. And plus, with Lurker, I can always trash an action card if I have nothing better to trash, and I can just gain it back with the Lurker. So here, Lurker is, like, limited value, but, like, it's still pretty good value. And, like, the nice thing about Lurker is, like, it puts pressure on your opponent, right? Like, if they don't get a Lurker back, you could just Lurker a captain. Like, alright, like, let's look at this board, right? What is there to do on this board? Well, I want to captain shit. I want to captain shit every single turn. So maybe I just Lurker twice here. Because, like, I don't care about any of these cards. I just want to play captain every turn. So here, just buying a bunch of fucking Lurkers is just gonna kill. Like, here, I just captain. My opponent, did he get a Lurker? He never got a Lurker, so I can just safely toss a captain in the trash. Now I'm probably done with Lurkers. Okay, now I just gain a second captain. And then I can use Lurkers to gain a bunch of distant lands later. I can use captains to play as encampments. It's an absolute insane board for Lurker. Like, probably enough that I open double Lurker. So, like, we learned another thing with Lurker here. That, like, Lurker, the time to open double Lurker is if you really don't think the cards leading up to 6 are all that good, but the cards that cost 6 are absolutely insane. so you want to slam lurkers. Another great example of this is possession. Like, if possession's on the board, I'm usually just opening double lurker and buying lurker every chance I can get, just for that threat. So, like, lurker is great if there are high-cost cards in the kingdom, but no great way of getting to them other than by lurker, in which case I will open double lurker sometimes. I will consider my options and be like, okay, cool. And if your opponent opens single lurker, you have to kind of consider, alright, how scary is this threat? Like, let's say you both open silver and your opponent opens a lurker. Well, you have to consider, alright, well, I can buy my silver, do a bunch of stuff, buy a lurker somewhere on one of my off turns, and my opponent can trash a card with the lurker. But will his lurker get there before my lurker gets there? And it might, and it might not. And those cards that you buy with the silvers that your opponent didn't get could get you to your lurker faster than your opponent does. So you could actually win that lurker split with the action card game. So you can delay your lurkers. Just because your opponent opens with a lurker doesn't mean you should be, like... It really doesn't mean you should be scared to like, not open a lurker. Like, if your opponent opens double lurker, and you just don't feel the lurker, you can buy your normal card turn 1 and then buy a lurker. And then if your opponent doesn't connect his lurkers, then they're either doing absolutely nothing for his deck, or he feels like, okay, I need to risk it, and he plays one lurker to trash a card. In which case, well, your odds of finding that one card with your lurker are pretty good. You can benefit off of him, and he still has, like, a Ruined Village variant in his deck, because his lurker isn't doing anything. So, like, lurker's a pretty deep game. Like, you have to think about it. And there's an element of risk attached to it. Like, the chances of both your lurkers connecting in your next shuffle, if you open both of them, is, like, not that high. You're drawing 5 out of 12 cards, and 2 of them have to connect. Like, that seems hard. So, lurker shines best when you just absolutely need to slam a 6 cost and you don't care about anything else, really. Or, like, you know, slam, like, a prince or something. Like, you know, slam some insane high-cost card, like Possession or King's Court. You know, things like that. And then, Lurker Hunting Grounds. Oh my god, we need to talk about Lurker Hunting Grounds. Fuck me. I fucking hate Lurker Hunting Grounds. Hunting Grounds. When you trash this, gain a duchy or 3 estates. So you just open double Lurker, trash Hunting Grounds for duchy every chance you get, and then you keep buying Lurkers. And then at some point, you stop buying Lurkers, you start buying estates, and, well, if you can. And you just drain the Hunting Grounds, drain the Lurkers, and then drain the estates and duchies. And then eventually you get a 3 pile, and if you ignore it, you just lose. Like, it's suicide to ignore. So every time you see a Lurker, look for stupid bullshit like Hunting Grounds. Stupid bullshit I ran into once. How much time have we wasted? Wow, it's 1:38. We haven't even started with all these cards. I've spent a lot of time talking about these. Like, but these are a lot deeper cards than the base set, so, like, oh my god. I've got, like, an hour left before I have to leave, so, like, I gotta, like, speed up. Like, oh my god. So, like, with Lurker, I've played another variant of this with Catacombs. I'll show Catacombs here. When you trash this, gain a cheaper card, and then it also had Silk Road. So I did Hunting Grounds Lurker, but with Catacombs and Silk Road instead, and it scored just about as much and just as fast. Like, that's even rare because you have to count on 2 cards showing up instead of just 1. But, like, shit like that can happen. Like, you have to always keep your eye out for, like, when you trash this, gain X and Y card. Another insane example is, oh my god, fucking Silk Merchant. Silk Merchant with Lurker? Like, what? Oh my god. So, like, Lurker's floor is pretty low, but Lurker's ceiling is fucking insanely high. So, you need to know when Lurker is worth going for, and that's, like, the single best thing you can do. Lurker... Having Lurkers in your deck is bad, but Lurkers doing things in your deck is pretty good. So if you're buying a bunch of lurkers and you can't play them because your opponent just gains stuff off of your lurker with his own lurkers, then your lurkers are awful. They're not doing anything. They're not worth anything. And now you have a 4-card hand for no reason. But if your lurkers are gaining a bunch of stuff, like, cool. Like, lurkers don't help you draw your deck. They really don't. They don't help you do anything with your deck. They just gain you cards that can be absolutely nuts. So, like, lurker, like, I could spend a whole video talking about lurker. Like, I could just roll lurker boards over and over and over again and just talk about lurker. Maybe I should do that. I probably will. This is just a brief overview of all the cards, and we're already bordering on 2 hours here. Like, yikes. We need to get going. Masquerade, it costs 3 plus 2 cards. Each player with any cards in hand. With any cards. This is like a new update with Masquerade. So now the lockout strategies with Mask and like King's Court and Cut Purse are now not possible anymore. But those pins used to be possible. They're not possible anymore because Donald changed the game a bit here. So like you need a card to pass for Mask. So each player with any cards in hand passes one to the next such player to their left at once. Then you may trash a card from your hand. So Masquerade is one of the one of the best cards in Dominion because it is fucking efficient as hell. So if you draw Masquerade turn 3, you get a clean shuffle. So you open Masquerade Silver. Turn 3, you draw your Masquerade. You play your Masquerade. You give your opponent an estate. He probably gives you an estate. You trash an estate. Then you have your Silver in hand. You just casually buy a 5. And then your turn 4 is clean. You just got 5 cards. You can buy your other card. And then you shuffle. So like Masquerade cycles you. It trashes a card. And it's just persistently good. It just thins your deck and draws at the same time. So you get rid of your estates first with your Masquerade. That's insane value, and then you start getting rid of your coppers, and your deck just, like, your deck will just accelerate so fast, because Masquerade draws you cards, which helps you buy shit, and it also trashes at the same time. So, like, it does 3 things at once, all for the cost of 3. Like, Masquerade is insane. It's really fucking telling when there is a cage match out there on YouTube, where someone played Donate, and the other person played Masquerade. And if you played Masquerade, you couldn't play Donate, and if you played Donate, you couldn't play Masquerade. It's really fucking telling that despite Donate winning the majority of those games, they were all fucking close. And Masquerade made it fucking close. Like, Masquerade's insane. Like, if you're not buying Masquerade in your opening turns, like, if you're not buying a Masquerade on your first 2 turns, you're probably misplaying. And you better have a good reason for not opening Masquerade if you're not opening Masquerade. That being said, opening double Masquerade's generally not advised because you're going to have about a 50% chance of colliding both your Masquerades. Which is not nothing. So, like, alright, let's say you don't collide your Masquerades. You play Masquerade turn 1. You draw 4 copper to estate, right? 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep, that works. 5. No, you draw 6 cards, right, with your Masquerade. So it would have to be 4 coppers, 1 estate. With your Masquerade play, well, then your card replaces itself. Alright, let's say you have like 3 estates, 1 estate, 3 copper, 1 estate, 1 mask. You play your mask and you draw copper estate. Okay, well, you have 5 cards in your next hand, so you know you have estate, 3 copper, mask. You trash your card, you buy your card. You're still capped at 12 cards. You play your Masquerade, trigger your shuffle, and then you have a 2 in 12 or 1 in 6 chance of drawing your other Masquerade. It can work out, and it might not work out, but it's like 50% odds of colliding your masks, and then your value in hitting 5 is like, you're sacrificing hitting 5, basically, with your Masquerades. Because your opponent's almost always going to pass you as like a, they're almost always going to pass you like an estate. So if you draw 5 coppers in an estate, that's your way of hitting 5. That's very unlikely. Or if you have 2 estates, 4 copper, and your opponent inexplicably passes you a copper because they have no estates in hand, like, that's very hard to do. It's pretty hard. So, like, by opening double mask, you're sacrificing A, your ability to play both masquerades, which is very hard. You have a 50% chance of failing. And then also, and that's assuming, of course, you draw a masquerade turn 3. You might not. If you don't draw a masquerade turn 3, your odds of drawing a masquerade turn 4 is actually, like, either 100% because you find a masquerade, or they both bottom deck, in which case it's still 100%, but now they've collided on the bottom. So you've played 1 masquerade in your, what, first 5 turns? And then you have to go through the rest of your shuffle without playing a masquerade. That's, like, brutal. So, like, opening double masquerade has so much downside and so little upside. Typically. Yeah, but, like, your cases of not opening masquerade are, like, I don't even know. Maybe a board with Chapel. If there's any card in Dominion that can beat Chapel, it's probably masquerade. You know, like, besides Donate and Cathedral and those obvious boards, it's probably Masquerade that could beat Chapel, because it's just, it does so much. It's so much value. It's, like, so good. Mill is 4 cost, gives you +1 card, +1 action. You may discard 2 cards for 2 money. Mill is incredibly good at hitting 5. Like, insanely good at hitting 5. If you draw Mill with 5 coppers, okay, that's a 5. And I say 5 coppers because you'd have 4 cards, 1 mill. If those 4 coppers were in your hand already and you play a mill, okay, well, you just drew copper, you hit 5, cool. If you drew an estate, you toss copper estate and you hit 5, cool. If you draw 2 estates, 3 copper with your mill, that's a 5 cost, cool. It takes drawing all 3 estates with your mill to hit not 5, and then it's guaranteed next turn you hit 5. This is with turn 3 draw, of course. And if you draw a mill with 3 estates turn 4, it's guaranteed you'll hit your 5 cost on turn 3. So, like, mill makes it incredibly likely you hit 5. Like, it's a mega safe play, gives you 1 VP, and it provides value for your deck. It's very consistent. So it's very, very hard for mill to not hit 5, provided you draw it on turns 3 or turn 4. I suppose you can fuck with those odds by what you pair mill with, but, like, by and large, mill is a fantastic open. And that's really all there is to say about it. There's tricks you can do with mill, like you can discard cards for your sentry to find in trash. You can use mill to discard cards for your draw to X, or for your necromancer to hit with the mason ability. Like, there's things you can do with mill outside of this, but this is its single best thing, is that it's very good to open. Mining Village also similarly has this opening ability, but it's one shot and it doesn't give you 1 VP, so it's worse at it than mill, but you still will sometimes just go for it because you really don't want a silver. So hey, Mining Village gets you to 5 and you pop it like you'd pop a feast to get a 5 cost. The downside being you couldn't buy a card after you popped the card with the feast, but, like, you're still okay with that. Anyway, like, Mining Village is a village, so you'll get it. You can use that for opening play, definitely. You can open Mining Village just for the opening play of cycling a card and also, like, trashing it to hit 5. Or potentially to hit more, right? Because you can open Mining Village Silver, play your Mining Village for your slightly higher odds of finding a silver, pop it, and then, like, what, you hit $4 just with the Mining Village and silver, and then you got 4 other cards to look at. If you find 3 copper, that's 7. If you find 2 copper, that's 6. If you find 1 copper even, that's 5. And then that makes your next turn really good, because your next turn will have 5 copper in it, because for you to only hit 5, you'd have to find triple estate. So Mining Village can be quite good. This is assuming turn 3 draw. Turn 4 draw, you will trigger a reshuffle, and you might not hit 5, so you have to consider that. But you also have to consider your turn 3. Turn 3 is usually best case. So, Mining Village is quite okay with opening. Also a thing to do with Mining Village, if you know you're going to end the game on the last turn, always pop your Mining Villages. Always pop your Mining Villages, because you never know how much money you'll need. And Mining Villages have tremendous value in that at any time you can pop them for 2. So it's quite good. It also combos with cards like Lurker. You can pop it for money and then Lurker the Mining Village back, so that you really didn't lose anything at all. So it's got value like that. Yeah. Of course, when you're opening Mining Village, you have to accept that you're not having a permanent 2 money in your deck. So if you really want the silver, and you don't want a one-shot silver, then maybe Mining Village isn't that good of an opener. That's mainly the main thing to talk about with Mining Village. I mean, otherwise it's just a fucking village. Who gives a shit? Minion, costs 5, +1 action. Choose 1 plus 2 coins or discard your hand, plus 4 cards, and each other player with at least 5 cards in hand discards their hand and draws 4 cards. Minion is a fucking annoying attack. Like, you'd think in your mind, okay, my draws are going to be alright on average with Minion, but they're really not. Like, having a 4-card hand is absolutely killer with Minion, and you don't get to choose which card to discard, which is, like, super overrated. So underrated, I mean. So in this case, like let's talk about Militia for a second. So you play a Militia, and you discard your cards down to 3, right? You think, wow, that's crazy, that's hard, that's brutal. But you get to choose which 2 cards to lose. Alright, I'm just going to lose my 2 worst cards. Who cares, right? Like, you might care, you'll cry, but it hurts, but it potentially doesn't hurt as much as Minion. Because, yes, Minion tosses 5 cards. Those 5 cards are more likely to have good cards in them than the 4 cards you're about to get. So the 4 cards you're getting, it's less likely you're going to draw good cards. For 1. For 2, that 5th card you're not drawing due to the Minion discard is absolutely brutal, and this is part of why Relic is super good. Relic's kind of like a Minion variant in a way. And we'll talk about that in the Adventures episode, of course. But we'll talk about it here, too, because it's the same principle. Drawing 1 less card in your starting hand is pretty brutal. You have no control over what that card you didn't draw was. You didn't draw 5 and discard 1. That's Urchin. Who cares? Urchin, like, is very inconsequential. But not being able to choose which card is tossed is killer. It can absolutely murder your turn. And if you've played any Dominion at all, if you've played any Minion games at all, where your opponent just gets a bunch of minions, and you had a great hand and it got discarded to a hand with shit, you're crying. And it's statistically more likely to happen. Because A, your 5 cards are more likely to have good cards in them, because it's 5 versus 4. It certainly can happen where you have 5 shit cards and then you get tossed to 4 with a good card in there, but it's not as likely as 5 cards to 4 cards. So, like, Minion statistically is a brutal attack, and it also happens to be pretty good at hitting single province. So if you get, like, 6 minions, you're very likely to hit a bunch of provinces. So all you have to do is discard once and then get your get up to 8. So you have like 3 minions in hand. Okay, cool. You take 4 coins, you discard once, and then you just need to hit 4. Like, you already attacked. You might cycle because you know the rest of your deck is absolute shit and you want to get through it. But then you might not hit 8. So, like, you might just take what you will and hit 8, and then you know, okay, well, my opponent will minion me next turn, so, you know, I'm okay with him letting me skip those. So, like, you gotta do a lot of deck tracking. Is Minion a good card? I want to say it's not a good card. I want to say it's actually a below average card. But there are so many cases where just going for Minion money provinces is just, like, the thing to do because it's faster than not doing it. Like, that happens far more often than, like, I would like to admit and a lot of people would like to admit. So, like, I guess I have to say Minion's a pretty good monolithic strategy. It's also sort of draw to X. Like, you can do a bunch of stuff, play a minion, and then toss, and then do more things. So, like, I guess I have to conclude that Minion's a sometimes good card. Like, it's a hard card to talk about. Like, we'd have to roll a bunch of cards, and you notice we're, like, pretty much on 2 hours. I can't really talk much more about Minion. Like, we have to keep going. But, like, Minion's a deeper card than it looks. And it probably deserves a video of its own. I guess we'll talk about all the cards more in detail in each episode, I guess. Like, I'll make a series where I just talk about individual cards. This is just kind of an overview. Patrol, we got +3 cards. Reveal the top 4 cards of your deck. Put the victory cards and curses into your hand and put the rest back in any order. So this is like fixed scout. It's a pretty nice Smithy variant. It's very good. Its downsides are that it might trigger shuffles you don't want triggered because it reveals 4 cards. That's its main downside, is like, oh man, like, yeah, it just skipped a bunch of my good cards because I played the Patrol. Because it reveals 7 cards. So if you have 6 cards in your deck left and you play a Patrol, I mean, love it or hate it, it's going to trigger that shuffle. And you may or may not want that. So Patrol can have an edge to it. Absolutely can have an edge to it. That's like absolute murder. But also revealing the top 4 cards of your deck, taking out the bad shit, and then you get to rearrange it in any order. It helps you find your draw cards, helps you find villages. It helps make your deck more consistent. So like, it's way better than worse. And it helps for stuff like Herald and like, you know, things like that. And in a sense, it's better than, in a sense, it's a lot better than Cartographer, because instead of just discarding the victory cards, you're putting them into your hand, which is just strictly better. Because if you trigger another shuffle, you don't have to redraw them, you just already have them in hand. But you also don't get to toss coppers, so in a sense, it's also worse than Cartographer. So there's a lot to unpack with this card, but generally, it makes your deck a lot more consistent. You just need to make sure you're not playing Patrol as your very last card if you have more cards to play. Like, let's say you have 2 villages and a Patrol. The correct play is to play 1 village and then play Patrol. Do not play 2 villages and then Patrol, because what if in the 4th card that the Patrol reveals, hey, there's a Patrol there, you would have been able to draw it, but now you can't. So, order matters a lot with Patrol. So you need to, like, maximize your odds of continuing your turn with Patrol when having multiple cantrips in hand and all of that nonsense. Pawn Pawn is a somewhat deceptively complicated card, although, like, the complication is more in, like, tiny efficiencies versus not really, like, you're not getting much bang for your buck out of Pawn. So it costs 2, you choose 2, +1 card, +1 action, +1 buy, and +1 coin, and the choices must be different. A thing you can do with Pawn is use it as a pseudo cantrip. You can open Pawn Silver, play your pawn as +1 card and +1 coin, and it's not like you're ever going to use that action, so like, it's, who cares? And then you can use that, right? That's something I do decently often, and it comes with the caveat that I want the pawn in the future, which I will because it's got +buy, right? Like, I'll probably want it. So it's a way to get Pawn really early in the game instead of like, oh shit, I'm about to trigger my shuffle and I have to spend this $4 I have on a pawn. Well, fuck. Like, it's nice to get your pawns earlier rather than later if you need the buy, because, well, the later you get them, the more value you're sacrificing in order to get said pawn. But Pawn isn't really all that amazing. You're mainly getting it for +buy more than anything else. It's really nice for tokens like pathfinding or lost arts, or, you know, teacher tokens and stuff. Like, it's nice for that. And you do get choices, so you get flexibility, of course. So usually, like with Pawn, just randomly clicking card in action is not the correct play. It can be, but it also can be wrong. Like, sometimes you want the buy, sometimes you want the coin and the action, sometimes you just want a guaranteed coin. Sometimes you just want to draw a card and take a coin. And it really depends on your deck situation, and that's why some people hate pawn, because your opponents take forever with pawn. They think for 5 minutes and then they play card action. That's usually what happens with pawn, but pawn's more complicated than that. But, like, you know, like, it's not that incredible. So, like, the main reason you'll lose a game because of pawn is because you didn't get it soon enough and it has plus buy on it. That's the main deal with pawn. Replace is a really good card that I feel like people still massively underestimate, including myself. And it's funny I say I underestimate it because I say it's good. So, gives you 5, cost 5. Trash a card from your hand. Gain a card costing up to 2 more than it, and if the gained card is an action or a treasure, put it on your deck. And if it's a victory card, each other player gains a curse. So, Replace is a pretty good cursor. Not unlike this Mac cursor. I just noticed that, the wordplay there. So, Replace can turn your coppers into estates, or estates into more estates, and just curse your opponent, so it's quite fine at that. You can use Replace to top deck silver, kill an estate and top deck a silver, so it's pretty good at that. Or even better, just top deck an action card, right? Like, Replace has all of the benefits Remodel has, but it's more flexible because it top decks the card, so it allows you to gain and play, which is really good. Gain and play, like, you need to burn in your head that gain and play is really good, and Replace allows you to potentially do that. So, that's very good. Replace is quite good at that. Replace junking games are actually not that uncommon, where early on in you'll kill your estates for, like, silvers, and then you'll start killing coppers for estates and just junking your opponent. If there's otherwise no trashing, this can be absolutely devastating, because it can just murder. I've seen it kill people. It's a thing to look out for. I don't really have much more notes on it, because it's still a relatively newish card. I mean, it's been around for many years now, but, like, I feel like Replace is a pretty complex card. It probably deserves its own video, and we just don't have the time for that. Secret Passage it's a 4 cost. It's plus 2 cards, plus 1 action. Take a card from your from your hand, and put it anywhere in your deck. Secret Passage is a card that's secretly a cantrip, but it can set up your future turns. It has some situational uses that are quite nice. Like, for example, mountebank games. You can play your Secret Passage, draw your curse, and put curse in your next hand so you don't take 2 junk cards. It can be quite useful in that. Secret Passage you can use to set up your next turn. Of course, in general. You're like, alright, well, I have a village, I play my Secret Passage, I didn't find an action card that my village can use. I can either top deck my village for next turn, which is probably statistically better, or I could bottom deck a copper in order to fish for the said action card. So you can make little decisions like that. Secret Passage, of course, cycles. It helps you bottom deck your shit cards so you can trigger shuffles with those shit cards so that they're in your deck less. That's also a video to make about deck shuffling and things missing the shuffle and why it's so bad or why it's so good. That's another video I should make. As a concept, Secret Passage can help you with that. Also, Secret Passage can set up Swindler turns, right? You can play a Secret Passage, put a card in the 6th slot, then you draw your 5 cards, and your opponent plays Swindler, and it hits an estate, in which case you laugh, because you just had your opponent skip a card for you. It's very good. You can use Secret Passage to set up Sages, right? Like, we look at Dark Ages, we look at Sage. Reveal cards from your deck until you reveal one costing 3 or more, put that card into your hand and discard the rest. That's very good. So you can use Secret Passage for these little tactical things, but is Secret Passage like this amazing card? No, it's actually rather weak. It's a cantrip. It's a cantrip, basically. It's not drawing you more than one card, but it is rearranging the order of one of these cards in any so desired order you choose. So, it can be useful for that. I think good players will use this card to great effect, more so than weaker players, more than average, potentially. But, like, it's not a very strong card. Shantytown is a decent opener. Cost 3 plus 2 actions, reveal your hand. If you have no action cards in hand, plus 2 cards. So it can be a lost city if you have no actions in hand. And the risk is you play your Shantytown and don't find any actions. So really, it didn't do anything but draw 2 cards. That's its risk. And of course, if you have multiple actions in hand, Shantytown is just an Acropolis. So Shantytown's actually among the worst cards in Dominion. If you need villages, and then Shantytown's your village. But typically, I like opening Shantytown because it's still fairly likely you're not going to find it with an action card, and you just draw 2 cards straight up. Like, you can open Shantytown Silver, especially since you know you're going to need the village at some point. And then in your next shuffle, it's not too likely you're going to connect your Shantytown in your 1 action card or 2 action cards. And then you just get to cycle and play over 1 or even both the action cards if you draw them both. So, Shantytown has a lot of ceiling in terms of perfect shuffles, but those perfect shuffle odds go way, way down the more cards you add to your deck. And, but again, Dominion is all about early boosts. It's all about those. Dominion's all about getting an early lead. And then maximizing your odds with that early lead. So Shantytown can get you that, which is why I like to open it sometimes. But outside of that, it's actually a rather weakish card. It's not very good. Yeah, it's just not very good. And you can imagine situations where, okay, I play a card, I play a village, I play the last action card on my deck, and then Shantytown draws me 2 cards. Cool. But just as often, you'll draw too many action cards for your Shantytown to proc, and then you're just left there crying because you wish their Shantytown was a copper even. Or maybe you don't, because you play your Shantytown as an action and you get to play 2 terminals that way, but you wish your Shantytown was a village. So Shantytown is worse than village on average, but it has those spiky moments early game, and potentially sometimes where you're just like, wait, what the fuck? It can have those moments, it can have those swingy moments, but typically it's worse than village. Steward is a fantastic card that I think has probably been overrated, but like not that overrated. So it costs 3, choose 1 plus 2 cards, or plus 2 money, and trash 2 cards from your hand. So you get to choose one of these 3 options, so it's incredibly flexible. So you can open Steward Silver, trash a couple times, get your deck more consistent, and then you can just start taking coins with the Steward. So like it's very efficient at So it becomes a terminal silver. Or it can draw you cards, which if the value you're going to draw is better than silver, that's even better than 2 coins. So Steward's flexibility, especially early game, is what makes it so strong, because you have choices of what to do. Typically you always trash first. There's some people even who open double Steward quite often when they see it, and sometimes that is correct, because if you find a Steward turn 3 and turn 4, you just trashed 4 cards. On the flip side, it's not very likely you're going to ever buy anything unless there's a good 2 cost you want to buy. So it's actually very likely you're going to collide your Stewards in the next shuffle, albeit your deck is looking pretty good. And then your next turn, or the turn previous, you can buy a village and then you're not too mad. So like Steward can trash pretty fast, and then it provides economy once you've trashed down, or even card draw once you've trashed down. So it maintains its value throughout the entire game. So it's a very, very efficient card, and that's part of Steward's strength, is that it's very efficient. Chapel, once you've trashed all your cards down with Chapel, it's useless. Now, the game speed in which you get for getting a Chapel versus not getting a Chapel makes it far worth what it is, but Steward's very efficient. You trash down with Steward, and then you can still use it. In fact, opening with Steward is very common. Double Steward, you will see. Whether that's correct or not, I think depends on A, how lucky you were feeling, or like what other things you can pair the card with. How soon you want to hit 5. Like, you could open Courtyard Silver, trash one turn, and gamble and roll your dice to hit 5 the other turn, which can be quite powerful. It really depends on the kingdom what you want to do. But Steward is a very, very high-tier card to look out for, and I think it deserves its own video just on opening play alone. Next we have Swindler, which is not a very good card, but the potential alone makes it something people open often, even if it's incorrect, and sometimes they get rewarded for it. So, Swindler costs 3, it gives you +2 money, and each other player trashes the top card of their deck and gains a card with the same cost that you choose. So if you hit a copper, it turns into a curse. You're going to turn it into a curse. If it hits a state, well, you're probably just crying because you skipped a card for your opponent, and then you give them back an estate. If you hit one of their cards that they bought, like a 3 cost, you're probably turning that into a silver, and then they cry mega hard, because A, you skipped their good card, and then you also turn it into a worse card. If you hit a 4 cost, that could be good or bad, but you still skipped their 4 cost. It was pretty brutal. If there's potion on the board, you just gave them a potion. Which is pretty destructive, potentially. So there's... If you hit a 5 cost, you turn into a duchy. Like, Swindler, if you get lucky with Swindler, you'll probably win the game, even if you played it incorrectly, and that's the annoying part about Swindler, is it's pretty RNG. That being said, in the ideal cases, like ideal deck control, how things play out, Swindler actually helps your opponent, right? Because you play a Swindler, and your opponent has their copper hit turn into a curse. Okay, cool. Guess what? They want to trash that copper anyway, so having it be a curse while they're trashing it isn't really going to hurt them that much, on average. Now, of course, it could be they draw the curse on the turn where they don't draw their trasher, and that's another story, that then it hurts. But, like, by and large, your opponent could be happy that you're skipping their copper for them, so it's getting them closer to their shuffle, and they're cycling slightly. So, like, in theory, Swindler isn't good in the early game, in theory, if the kingdom is explosive enough. But, you know, typically in the complexities of Dominion, you get a lucky hit and then they cry, or you know, it's not that amazing of a kingdom, in which case, yeah, Swindler sucks. But so, like, a lot of Swindler games are like this, where people will just pick up a Swindler. I'll be like, no, why are you picking up Swindler? It's not good. You're just skipping cards, and then they hit my chapel, and then I just cry, and then I just lose, because they opened Swindler Chapel, they played their Swindler, and then they chapel down, and then I didn't get to do that, and then I just lose. So, like, sometimes you just gotta play for the high roll, and Swindler can get you high rolls that are just absolutely fucking stupid. Torturer is a bullshit card. Fucking hate Torturer. So it's 5 cost. You draw 3 cards. Each other player either discards 2 cards or gains a curse to their hand, their choice, which is why it's torturous, because you sit there pondering. Fuck, do I discard 2 cards or do I take a curse? Fuck. And then there's always the thought in their mind, what if they play Torturer again? Then what do I do? So if you know your opponent's going to play multiple Torturers, it's better to take a curse first, so you discard 1 less card. So usually the order is like, alright, I take a curse, I discard 2 cards, I take a curse, I discard 2 cards, but then you just took 2 curses. And if you have no way to get rid of those curses, that's your deck permanently getting worse. But if you discard a lot of cards, your turn's not doing anything. So you kind of have to have an idea in your mind, alright, is this turn going to do anything at all? And if not, I should just discard all of my cards and never take a curse. But then your opponent, snickering, has another good turn, plays a village, plays multiple torturers, and then you're stuck with the same dilemma all over again. It's torture. It's literally fucking torture. This card lives up to its fucking name, and it's bullshit. I think some of the worst, like, Dominion games are games with no trashing, but Village and Torturer. Because the goal of the game is to play a zillion Torturers a turn. And you could be ahead all game. All game, you can be ahead. Play multiple Torturers a turn, and then one shuffle all your Torturers bottom deck. Or you play a Torturer and you trigger a shuffle with all your Torturers, and you just don't connect anything. And then your opponent starts getting momentum, and then he doesn't have bad shuffles, so then, like, he fucks you. And then, like, you're ahead all game, and then one shuffle just fucks you over. Or you can have a game where you just never can get off the ground because you didn't hit 5 soon enough, and your opponent hits you on a turn when you hit 5, so you have to take a curse in order to hit 5, and then that curse fucks you from hitting 5 in another shuffle, and it's just, and then you just lose. Those are the worst games of Torturer. But Torturer actually isn't that destructive. I know I've been, like, hyping it up this entire, like, speech I've been giving, but, like, it's actually a weakish card on average. Like, for as many destructive games with Torturer as there are, it's kind of like Minion, right? Like, there's an annoying, non-trivial percentage, like 30 or 20%. Of games where Torturer is just absolutely brutal, and then there's, like, a lot of games where Torturer really doesn't hurt that much. It's kind of like that. So, like, when you see Torturer on the board, you just have to immediately decide, alright, is Torturer going to kill my opponent if I go for it? Or is Torturer going to kill me if my opponent goes for it? And then you kind of have to act accordingly. That's kind of how I approach Torturer. Like, even just playing one Torturer, though, a turn, it's like, yeah, your opponent either takes a curse or they discard 2 cards. And depending on the amount of trashers available, even if there's, like, no villages on the board, your opponent could take a curse to have a normal turn, or they can discard 2 cards and have a worse turn. They're going to choose the less worse option, which, you know, I don't know which is which, but they might know. So maybe they'll toss 2 estates, doesn't hurt. Maybe they'll toss a copper and it stops them from hitting gold. Like Torturer, the more of them you play, the more destructive it gets. I feel like we've exhausted Torturer. We're running out of time. So next we have Trading Post, costs 5. Trash 2 cards from your hand, and if you did, gain a silver to your hand. So Trading Post kills 2 bad cards and gives you a silver for it. Silver's also a bad card, but it's not nearly as bad as money games have shown lately. Probably for the past couple of years now, as our Dominion meta has evolved. Having a bunch of silvers in your deck is not the worst thing you can do, especially if you trade bad cards for good cards. And speaking of trade, we scroll to Adventures, we find Trade. Trash up to 2 cards from your hand, gain a silver per card you trashed. This is actually a fairly good event a lot of the time. And, yeah, trading 2 bad cards for 2 silvers is actually pretty good value, especially early in the game. So Trading Post can be good. It thins you a card and it gives you a silver. Now, that being said, it's rather slow. It's not always the best trasher. In fact, it's usually not the best trasher, but it gives you some economy for your trashing woes. It does. And later on, you can always trash a silver plus a bad card for a silver, so it actually just thins 1 card. There's really not that much to say about Trading Post. Like, if I open Trading Post, like, if I get a 5-2, I'm pretty happy to take a Trading Post, especially if I kill 2 estates for a silver. Like, that's amazing. And even if not, I think opening Trading Post is great, but its value quickly diminishes as the game goes on. So I think even even shuffle right after the opening, if you didn't get to open Trading Post, it gets significantly worse, especially if there are other trashers in the kingdom that cost less than 5 that you're just going to open. But if you can open Trading Post, I think that's rather worth it. Upgrade. Costs 5, plus 1 card, plus 1 action. Trash a card from your hand. Gain a card costing exactly 1 more than it. So Upgrade is fantastic for gameplay. It's a card that rewards good players exceedingly much. like, by a lot more than bad players. It's a very good card. It turns estates into silvers. You can kill coppers into nothing. With cost reduction, upgrade gets insane. Potentially, depending on how many cost reduction you play and how much control of your deck you have, it's quite good. And even in decks where you've run out of things to trash that are bad, upgrade still shines because you can upgrade a card into a better card. So it maintains its value. You can get multiple upgrades, and then when you're done trashing, you can upgrade one upgrade into a gold, or even a better 6, like a captain or something. So upgrade is a very complex card. I think it requires its own video, and I think it's very good. It's a very good open if you can open it. I certainly would always consider opening upgrade. I think it's a pretty good card. I think it's seen some some people have like dropped it down on their like ideal lists a bit because there's just so much busted stuff in Dominion, but I think upgrade's a quite good card. And finally we have Wishing Well. Wishing Well is, I think, one of Steph's favorite cards. I think his favorite card is Black Market, but Wishing Well is definitely up there for him. So it costs 3, plus 1 card, plus 1 action. Name a card, then reveal the top card of your deck, and if you named it, put it into your hand. So it's a cantrip that can be a lab for 3. Early game, you'll often see people open a Wishing Well, because it's very likely they'll wish for the correct card. And there's a lot of like little meta things you can do with Wishing Well. Like, for example, if you have multiple Wishing Wells in hand, and you're trying to find a good card, and you play your first Wishing Well, you should always wish for a card that you don't want to draw. Like, always wish for Copper or Estate, like whatever the most of that card is. Because if you reveal that the card you wanted is on top, then you just draw it with your second Wishing Well anyway. And if you don't draw it, if you don't find that card and you find a bad card, that just gives you more search space for your later Wishing Wells to find that card that you want. So usually with your Wishing Wells, you want to wish for cards you don't want or the cards you have the most of with your early Wishing Wells, and then with your later Wishing Wells, you might wish for the card you want. Also, Wishing Well gets insanely powerful when you only have 2 cards left in your deck before you play the Wishing Well, because then you know you can guarantee what card you draw with your Wishing Well. It gets stronger closer to the end of your shuffle. Wishing Well does, definitely. Because you can more likely guarantee or get close to guaranteeing what your Wishing Well does. That being said, if you're not very good at tracking your deck, and you just willy-nilly wish with your Wishing Wells, it can be quite catastrophic. And Wishing Well can be a card that you think is absolutely shit. And sometimes it is shit. But usually Wishing Well is quite good. It rewards deck tracking. It rewards being really skilled. It's a very high skill card. And it deserves its own video, in which I repeat a lot of what I've said, plus potentially more. Because the upside of Wishing Well is that it's a lab for $3. That's really good. The downside is you get to find out what your top card is and you don't draw it. In which case, well, maybe you can vassal that card, potentially. Or you can draw it anyway. So I think we're going to stop here. I think we're happy talking about all the cards that we talked about. Wishing Well's good. It's a good opener. It's not so good if in decks where like Menagerie is good, where there's like 50 million things your Wishing Well could wish for. Like, Wishing Well gets significantly worse if you have a very diverse deck than if you have a very monolithic deck. So if you have a deck full of like 8 Wishing Wells, you'll probably not draw 16 cards, but you're more likely to draw cards because you'll wish for a bunch of Wishing Wells. So like if you have a lot of one card to wish for, Wishing Well gets a lot better than earlier. Of course, there's also Wishing Well with stuff like Apothecary, or things like that, where you can guarantee getting correct wishes, like with Cartographer, Scout, LOL, which you can't play with anymore, so unless you have it in real life. So like there's cards like that, like Deck Inspection, like Patrol, that Wishing Well shines pretty well with. That you can get the maximum value guaranteed out of. So it's a pretty solid card. I don't know if I'd say it's a great card, but it's probably a good card. So it's definitely worth it to practice your Wishing Well play and to think about it and take the time to figure out what's in your deck, because you should be doing that anyway. If you have any hope in hell of being a good player, you should always track your deck. Anyway, thanks everyone for watching. The next episode, we are going to cover Seaside. And we're just going to kind of go down the list here of things to talk about. And, alright, I'll see you guys next time. It will be Seaside.